Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So as you all know, the UCLA basketball team traveled to China. And while they were in China, 3 of the members of the team were charged with shoplifting. In China, shoplifting is a very serious offense. It's considered highly dishonorable, according to the news reports that I have read. In China, people face up to 10 years for shoplifting. So you have these 3 American basketball players charged with shoplifting, facing a potential 10-year sentence. And at the time, the President of the United States was traveling throughout Asia on a tour. And while he was there, he urged the President of China to release these UCLA basketball players. One of those players was LaVar Ball's son. So eventually, because of the president's efforts, and I'm sure because of efforts of others, China released those young men. They returned to the United States. Once they returned, they admitted that they engaged in shoplifting, and they apologized for their crimes. All those players, they thanked the president for his role in helping to have them released and returned to America. And afterwards, LaVar Ball was asked about this situation. He was asked about the president's involvement in getting those players returned to the United States. And this is what LaVar Ball said. He said, "Who? What was he over there for? Don't tell me nothing. Everybody wants to make it seem like he helped me out." So that's what LaVar Ball had to say. And before I get started with this commentary, this is not a situation of me caping for Donald Trump. Many people know that I strongly oppose Donald Trump and his policies. Many people know that I don't have any respect for Donald Trump as a man and just as a person. So this is not about me caping for Donald Trump. But the fact of the matter is, Donald Trump played a very important role in helping LaVar Ball's son be freed from China, making it possible for him to return to China. And I just think that it is not only disrespectful, it is ungrateful for LaVar Ball to make those kind of statements. To basically dismiss the role that the president played in helping to free his son. The president's role cannot be diminished. I mean, the fact of the matter is, he's the president of the United States. The president of the most powerful country in the world. So that cannot be downplayed. President Trump is a businessman. His role had influence over what the president of China did. Without a doubt, those young men probably would not have been released from China if it wasn't for Donald Trump making an appeal for leniency. So I just think that it is ungrateful and disrespectful to downplay the president's role. Now, before I actually saw this CNN interview, I was on Facebook this morning, and I saw that one of my Facebook friends referred to LaVar Ball as an idiot. And after seeing that, I actually went onto my YouTube page, and I noticed that a YouTuber described LaVar Ball as a shining example of how black men should respond. So after watching this video for myself, after watching this interview for myself, I agree with my friend on Facebook. LaVar Ball is an idiot. This man is trying to build a brand. He's trying to build a company. And he is undermining his entire brand by behaving like an idiot. His disrespect in terms of not being grateful for the actions of the president. And I'm going to address President Trump in a second. But his reaction to that situation was inappropriate and just downright disrespectful, period. And such a reaction undermines his brand, and it undermines the brand of his company. And the way that he handled this interview also undermines LaVar Ball's brand and the brand that he's trying to build for his family. You know, this guy was interrupting the host. This guy was unnecessarily argumentative during this interview. This man failed to acknowledge the common sense meaning of his own quote. And he engaged in a game of semantics. So he undermined himself. You know, he did not present himself as an intelligent man. He did not present himself as, you know, somebody that's courteous or respectful, but yet assertive. This man just came off like an asshole, man, to be blunt. That's how he came off. Also, this man, during this interview, he was making excuses for his son's criminal activity. He was downplaying the significance of his son shoplifting. Is that how a shining example of how a black man should present himself, by downplaying a crime, by downplaying shoplifting? Is that a shining example of addressing the media? I mean, this guy downplayed the fact that his son and these other players stole merchandise that didn't belong to them. You know, this guy went into some rant about it wasn't a big deal because being raised in South Central Los Angeles, I've seen much harsher things. You know, he talked about how there was no physical threats or anything like that. This was a victimless crime. Theft is not a victimless crime. And the fact that this man would downplay this, it's just stupid. It's stupid to downplay the fact that your son went to a foreign land and committed a crime. That's not what responsibility looks like. You know, he should at least live up to the level that his son did. I mean, his son confessed to the crime and apologized for the crime. But yet and still, you had this man, LaVar Ball, defending his son, you know, making excuses for his son, engaging in this criminal activity, downplaying the significance of it. And that's just not appropriate. I don't think that that's something that anybody should be doing. And I just think that that undermines his brand. It undermines what he's trying to build for his company. You know, and I just think that it is fundamentally wrong, again, for this guy to fail to acknowledge the role that Donald Trump played. Now, I want to address Donald Trump real quick. You know, Donald Trump is a narcissistic person. You know, he felt the need to boast and brag about the role that he played in freeing or helping to free these brothers who were being held in China. I mean, who toots their own horn like that? You know, who constantly feels the need to be praised? And then on top of that, Donald Trump has all these major world affairs to deal with, all these important issues to deal with. But yet and still, he takes time out of his busy schedule to respond to LaVar Ball's statement to the media. He takes time out of his busy schedule to tweet out insults to this man, LaVar Ball. And that tells you just how petty Donald Trump is, just how narcissistic this man is, and how overly sensitive this man, Donald Trump, is. And it shows you just how he's unfit, period, to be president of the United States. You know, I acknowledge what he did in terms of helping to free those young men in China. But then again, you know, his response to this whole situation involving LaVar Ball is just another example of how childish and how petty he can be. Now, there are a couple of other points that I want to make in this video. And that's this. You know, this guy, LaVar Ball, kept going back and forth about how Donald Trump didn't take them home on his plane. And he said that if he did take them home on his plane, then he would have thanked them. He didn't have to take them home on his plane in order to play a role in releasing these young men from being held in China. through his diplomacy and him talking to the Chinese, it made it possible for them to be freed from China. So, I mean, this guy is just, LaVar Ball is just arrogant. He's over the top. And he just needs to acknowledge, what was done. Acknowledge the fact that the president played a role in helping to free his son. He should have just acknowledged that instead of being disrespectful, instead of downplaying the significance of this crime. He should have acknowledged that it was a very serious matter instead of making excuses for it. And he should have just thanked the president just like his son thanked the president. So those are my thoughts about this situation. Tell me what you think. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Peace. Oh, and before I go, I want to just briefly mention one thing. I mean, people keep holding this guy up. This guy, LaVar Ball, as if he's some kind of example of black manhood. But you cannot be an example of black manhood when you have a white wife. You can't be an example of how a black man should be if you have a white wife. I mean, I won't say anything about him being a father. Apparently he is a good father. He's involved in his son's life. But I think that it gets to a point where black people are so desperate for positive black male images, positive image of black fathers, that we embrace anything. Even if that person is a loudmouth, arrogant asshole, who makes weak and unfounded arguments, who's overly aggressive and overly over the top. We want to hold these people up as if they're some kind of shining example. And I just think that that's ridiculous, man. I mean, he has played a role in making his sons into a great basketball dynasty and all that. And that's great. Hats off to him. He's doing great with his business and all that kind of stuff. But don't hold out this man as some kind of example of how black men should respond to the media when he appeared to be, just overly aggressive, unintelligent, rude, and obnoxious, man, and ungrateful. So that's it, man. Tell me what y'all think. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Peace.